Hello and welcome to a new video of the Cruise Vibes and a new ship tour, and today we're gonna take a look at the AIDAnova, a cruise ship of the German cruise company AIDA Cruises, the first ship of the Excellence class or Helios class. And as always, we're starting our tour with a few general facts about the ship. The ship is 337 meters long, 42 meters wide, was constructed in 2018 at the Meyerwerft in Papenburg, has a gross tonnage of 183,858, and that makes her the 14th biggest cruise ship in the world at the moment. She's the first ship of the Helios class. She has a sister ship, AIDA Cosma, and 7 other sister ships in operation for Costa, P&O and Carnival. She can take up to 6,654 passengers in 2,626 cabins, and the crew size is about 1,500 to 1,600. She can be completely operated by LNG, but also with traditional fuel oil. She is slightly bigger than her sister AIDA Cosma. There are a few differences, which makes her the biggest cruise ship on the German-speaking market at the moment. She is used all year round for cruises from Hamburg to either Western Europe or to Norway. This will be my longest ship tour so far. It will take us about 55 minutes to see all public areas of this huge cruise ship. As I said, she's currently number 14 of the biggest cruise ships in the world, and we are starting our ship tour as always on the lowest deck. Actually, in this case it's not the lowest deck because there's deck 3, but we are starting on deck 4. On deck 4 there are only cabins. Here we can see a cabin hallway, and on deck 3 there are only the exits and the entrances and the medical center, so there's nothing that we can actually take a look at. So we're starting at deck number 4, and we're now heading to the middle staircase. There are 3 staircases, all of them having 8 elevators each, except for the rear staircase, which only has 6 elevators. So sometimes there might be a bit of waiting at the elevators. Here we have the stairs down to deck 3. As I said, there's only the medical center and entrances and exits, so we can straight away go to deck number 5, which also mainly has cabins. Here we even have balcony cabins. Those are the cabins with a metal railing, but these are the only cabins with a balcony that are directly and very close to the water. On almost all other balconies you will have a view of the promenade below. Here on deck 5 you have a direct view to the water, but if the weather is very bad, your door might be blocked with a metal protection. Here on deck 5 we also have the market restaurant, which is very traditional and can be found on all ships of AIDA Cruises. It's a typical market restaurant in a buffet style, so you can take all the food yourself. Comes with a huge selection and a big buffet area. And here we have the seating area. We have this rather dark area in the middle, and then we have the bright areas close to the windows. On other AIDA ships, this is the most used restaurant. Here on the Nova it is a bit harder to find because it's on deck 5 and it's the only public area on deck 5. So here sometimes it's a good idea to go to the market restaurant if other restaurants might be full. Whenever I was in the restaurant I always found a table. It was never a problem. Otherwise I heard it might get a problem. So probably in peak times, sometimes it might be a bit difficult to find an empty table, but I always found a table. We can now go up to deck 6, and here we have the next restaurant, which is a very special restaurant. It's the Time Machine, which is a dinner show. I will tell you a bit more about the dinner show here at the Time Machine restaurant in one of the upcoming videos from on board. Here we can see the interior of this very special restaurant. It is not included, so you need to pay extra and you have to have a reservation for it. From here we can go directly to the next main restaurant, which is the Belladonna restaurant, another buffet style main restaurant with free seating and an open seating. It has the same concept like the market restaurant, just with a more Mediterranean touch. And it comes with a huge seating area, so also here it should be always a table available. And it comes with a very big window front, so you have a fantastic view over the sternway through those big panoramic windows right at the aft of the ship. Here we can see some pictures of this restaurant. So we have now seen 2 of the 4 main restaurants, and then there are some additional restaurants as well. So there is a huge selection of restaurants available on board of the AIDAnova, all of them with a very casual approach, except for the fine dining restaurant, which we will see later on in the video. There is almost never a dress code on board of any AIDA ship, so it's always very casual. Here we have the entrance area to the East restaurant. So we have this Asian themed entrance area because the East restaurant is an Asian themed restaurant. Here we can see this beautiful entrance area also on the picture. Now we can head into the East restaurant, which, as I said, is an Asian style restaurant, but it's also one of the main restaurants. It's included, you do not need a reservation, and it is a buffet style restaurant with open seating. But it's not only a restaurant, there's also a hallway going through this restaurant, so you can access it 24/7. That's why the seat rows and the buffet, which you can see here on the right side, are blocked off with a rope, so that you just walk through it, because it's the only connection from the Belladonna restaurant and the Time Machine restaurant to the rest of deck number 6. Here we can see some pictures from the East restaurant, which is slightly smaller than the other 2 main restaurants that we've seen so far. Here I actually went for lunch only once, and there I got the last available table, so I think here it might be a bit more difficult to find an available seat. We're continuing on to the front, and here we will find some more Asian restaurants. Next one is the Teppanyaki Asia Grill. This is a specialty restaurant, so you need to pay if you want to have your lunch or dinner here. On the left side we have a small bar area, and here we have the Teppanyaki restaurant. This is not included in your fare, so you need to pay extra and you need to have a reservation. I would recommend doing this reservation before going on board, so you can make sure that you get the table on your requested date for sure. Here we can see the small bar area, and we're now heading on further to the front, where we will find the next Asian restaurant, which is a sushi restaurant. It's called the Sushi House. It is a very beautiful restaurant with a nice design, as we can see here. Also, this restaurant is not included, and you need to pay extra if you want to have lunch or dinner here. Also here I would recommend making a reservation in advance to make sure to get a table at your requested time. It's a very nice and beautiful restaurant, and in general I was positively surprised by how beautiful and stylish the AIDAnova is. The older AIDA ships are always quite colorful and playful, and the AIDAnova looks a bit more grown up with a slightly more luxurious style. And we have another Asian themed location, which is the Tokyo Bar. As you can see, a Japanese styled bar with a special menu. If you're traveling on AIDAnova, make sure to check the bar menu. For example, I was drinking a lot of non-alcoholic drinks, and some bars have a special menu, and sometimes drinks are included in your drinks package. In some other bars the same drinks are not included, so make sure to always check the menu and find out what is included at which bar, especially if they have a special menu. Most bars have the same menu, but there are a few special bars that have their own menu, so if you're going to one of those bars, make sure what kind of specials they have and if they might have your favorite drink even included in your drinks package. We're going to the next special bar, which is the Rossini bar. And before we can take a look at the Rossini restaurant, as I said, this is the fine dining restaurant, slightly less casual, still no dress code, but it is the most luxurious restaurant on board, also looking very luxurious as you can see here, and you will get several courses in a fine dining Michelin star quality. I was of course also visiting the Rossini, so there will be a bit more about this restaurant in a later video. From here we can go back into the Rossini bar, which in my opinion is a bit too white, so there's not that much color, everything is a bit white, and we have also white tiles, so it feels a bit cold. It's not my favorite bar, but it has a very nice menu. For example, here you can get non-alcoholic gin tonic included in your drinks package. Drinks that are not available in all bars, or in some bars they are not included. So even though if it is a bit too cold for me, I still can recommend going there because they have a nice selection of drinks. Our next location is the Theatrium. This is a combination of a theater and the atrium, and that is quite typical for the ships of AIDA. They do not have a traditional theater, instead they have this Theatrium. Here on Nova it stretches over 3 decks, and there are 3 main bars on those 3 decks. Here on deck number 6 we have the Nova bar all the way around the Theatrium. If you have seen my other videos about the ships of AIDA, you know that I'm not the biggest fan of the Theatrium concept. It has some ups and some downs. Of course, one of the big ups is that you can join a show or leave a show whenever you want, and you won't have everybody looking at you when you're leaving a theater. But it also means that there are always people walking by. People who don't want to watch the show are talking to each other, so there's always background noise, it's always movement, so it feels a bit hectic. And here this concept is reaching its limits, because there are just simply not enough seats available with a view to the stage. So every single evening there were a lot of people standing, trying to get a glimpse of the show. So actually I was never watching a show here on the AIDAnova just because the Theatrium was too crowded, it was too busy, and it was not a very nice atmosphere, so I decided to not watch a show. I will tell you a bit more about the Theatrium when we are getting back into it later on. We're now here at the reception. Reception has a regular size. Even though the ship is much bigger than other ships, the reception is more or less the same size like on smaller ships, just because nowadays you can do almost everything using the AIDA app. You can just do it on your phone. There's no need to go to the reception, so it's not necessarily a pretty big space. Right next to it we have the first shop, which is the AIDA Shopping Welt, AIDA Shopping World, where you can get mainly clothing and a few souvenirs. And now we're heading past the reception back to the other side where we have a few more shops. Here we can see the front staircase, and here on the right side we have the kiosk, which is a shop where you can get some travel essentials, some snacks and some drinks. And on the left side we have the jewelry and some accessoires. As you can see, all shops are covered with windows. They will just simply be removed as soon as the shops are opening. Of course, I did the ship tour once again very early in the morning when everybody was sleeping, so the shops of course were still closed. But once they are open, they will just simply remove those glass walls and you can easily access those stores. We're now heading further on to the front. Our next location is the art gallery, which we can see here on the right side. You can take a look at the pieces of art. Of course, you can also buy them. You can also get them at auctions that will be held at the Studio X, which we will take a look at later on. We're now heading to the other side, heading back to the starboard side, where we will find the art bar. It's a bar which is a bit calmer, with less noises, less entertainment. It now feels like it's quite hidden, but as soon as the shopping world is opening, you can just easily walk through the shop and then it's quite easily accessible. But still, it's a bit more hidden than the main lounges, so it can be a bit calmer. It's a quite calm and nice alternative to the main lounges. It comes with a standard drinks menu, so no special drinks here, but still it is a nice bar, also coming with big tables, so it's quite good for playing cards, for example. Also in the bar there are some more pieces of art. That's why it's also called the art bar. From here we are now heading back, same way we came from, and now we can take a look at the Studio X. Studio X is the TV studio on board. It's used for some shows that are produced on board, adaptations of TV shows, own entertainment shows, And also for the auctions, for example, this Studio X can be used. It stretches over 2 decks. And now we can take a look at the photo studio, which is called Pixel's Fotowelt. Here you can buy all the pictures that have been taken of you by the photographers. For example, at Embarkation, of course, everything is digital now. There are no pictures printed unless you buy them. So it doesn't take up that much space anymore and there's no waste when you don't want to buy a picture. Here we can see the staircase again. Here I think it's slightly too blue, it's a bit too bright in my opinion. And now we can head up to deck number 7, the next deck with public areas. Here we have the cube. The cube replaces the anytime bar, so it's the nightclub on board. Comes with a new type of time tunnel, which is looking very nice, but the cube itself is only open very late in the evening. So actually I've never been there on my cruise because it's always opening past midnight if it's open for adults, and before that it's often only available for kids and teens. And sometimes it's also used during the day for dancing lessons, but it's not open all day long, so that's why I've never been in there. On the other side we have the AIDA fan shop where you can buy some souvenirs with the AIDA logo on it. And now we're heading back to the port side, and here we have another late night bar, the Rock Box Bar. And as the name implies, this is a bar which is focusing on rock music, so either they are playing rock music or they are rock concerts. Here we can take a look inside, but also this bar is only open rather late in the night. We're now walking back through the casino, which regarding the ship's size is very small, but that is because Germans do not like gambling that much. On most German ships there's either no or if just a very small casino available. Also here in AIDAnova it's a rather small casino. For a German ship it's actually pretty big. It also comes with its own bar, which we can also see here on the picture. From the casino we're now heading into the street food area. Here you can get different types of street food, like the famous German currywurst, curry sausage here in this shop. Right next to it we have some seating areas, and you can also get the kebab, Döner kebab in German. And in the middle we have Brot und Stulle, which is a restaurant where you can get some sandwiches. Those small restaurants are usually open when the main restaurants are closed, so if you're coming back late from an excursion and the main restaurant is already closed for lunch but not yet open for dinner, you can go here, or also late in the evening you can get a small snack here. Here we have another entrance into the AIDA fan shop, and here we can see some more seating areas. And now we're heading back into the theatrium. Here in the theatrium we have another bar, which is called the Loge 7 bar. It looks more or less the same like the Nova bar, in a quite typical German style, so it's slightly more colorful than the ships of TUI cruises, but still with a rather calm look. Not too many colors, not too extraordinary, so that's what I would describe as a German style. Not too crazy, but slightly colorful. That's, I think, the best way how you can describe those 3 bars here in the theatrium. But before we can take a closer look at this bar, we're heading back to the front, because here on the port side we have the Fernweh-Experten Cruise and Tours. This is the location where you can book your next cruise directly on board. And now we're heading back into the Loge 7 bar. So as I said, this theatrium concept has a few downs, and one of the big downs, as I said, is that there are not enough seats, so people are always standing around, and that makes the atmosphere rather noisy here in the theatrium. What is also a downside, if you just want to sit here, have a drink, you will always hear the shows, and that's not only in the evening, but of course the artists have to have rehearsals, and they have to be done on stage, so also during the day you will hear a lot of those rehearsals. So those bars are not very calm, you will always have some background noises, some rehearsals, some shows. So yeah, even though they look very nice and comfortable, they are or can be a bit noisy. We're now heading back to the rear part of the ship. we have the Mystery Room, which is an escape room game. And we are also heading to another special bar, which comes with its own menu. And that is French Kiss. The bar belongs to the French Kiss restaurant, which we'll see later on. It's a rather small bar, which has a lot of fans. So whenever I was there, it was always crowded. So you can consider yourself lucky if you find a table here. It has two separate seating areas, belong together of course. Here in the second area you have those nice separates. To get one of those you have to be really lucky, because everybody wants to sit there. And now we're heading again to the starboard side, because here we have the vegan restaurant that can also be used for cooking lessons, because it has an open show kitchen. But it is mainly used as a vegan restaurant. It is not included in your cruise fare. You need to have a reservation and you need to pay extra. You can also have vegan breakfast here, but also that is not included, so you need to pay extra. It's a very nice restaurant with a great concept, and I will show you a bit more about this restaurant in one of my upcoming videos. Now we're back at the French Kiss. This time we can take a look at the restaurant. And this is also a specialty restaurant, but it is included. You need to have a reservation, but you will get some nice French food for free. It is included, but the demand is very high. I booked my cruise around like 5 months before the actual cruise, and there was no chance to get a seat here in this restaurant. It was already fully booked. But there's a small trick. When you come on board, first thing you do is log into the AIDA app, and you can straight away make a reservation, because they always keep a few tables to make the reservation on board. So that has to be the first thing you do when you come on board if you want to get one of those still available tables. But I would recommend just at the second you book the cruise, straight away make your reservation for the French Kiss restaurant. Here we can see Best Burgers at Sea, another specialty restaurant which is also included. For this one you don't need a reservation, but it might happen that you have to wait a bit to get an empty table. And now we're heading further aft, and we're coming into the next specialty restaurant that is included in your cruise fare, but you need a reservation. That is the Ocean's Fish Restaurant. Also, here make sure to make the reservation as soon as you book, and if it's fully booked, make a reservation as soon as you come on board. As the name implies, this is a fish restaurant, so you can get mainly some fish dishes. And we continue on heading aft, and there is another restaurant, and that is the Yacht Club restaurant. This is the fourth main restaurant. It's a buffet style restaurant. Included, of course, in your cruise fare. You don't need a reservation. You can just go there during the opening times and take whatever seat is available. It has a maritime style. Eye-catcher are the big screens, which gives you the feeling that you're sitting in a small harbor. And this restaurant is also always accessible. You can always walk through, because it is also the access to the lanai bar, which we will take a look at later on. We're now heading back, and we're going up to deck number 8 in a second. So here we have the main entrance into the restaurant and the elevators again. As I said, here are only 3 of them, and now we can go up to deck number 8. And here on deck 8 we have also some cabins, and actually I would not recommend taking almost all of them. They all have some slight problems, so I'll tell you a bit more about this. We're now out on a promenade, and here you can see on the left side there are some cabins. In German they are called the Spannerkabinen, which you could translate into English to peeping Tom cabins, because your balcony ends at a promenade and everybody can look into your cabin. So I would not recommend booking a cabin like this, because you have absolutely zero view of the ocean and everybody can take a look into your cabin. But zero view of the ocean also applies to the cabins that are slightly above the promenade, because the promenade will block your view. It is very wide, which is nice, but it means that from all cabins with a balcony you have a view of the promenade, and after that you can see the ocean. The higher you get, the better it gets, but this is a big downside of ships like this with these huge promenades. That's why I would recommend actually taking a balcony on deck 5, because there you're much closer to the ocean. Or you can also take a balcony right at the front of the ship where the promenade is a bit thinner. Here we are at the lanai deck. We have the lanai bar, which is an outdoor bar at the aft of the ship with a very nice view over the stern wave. It also comes with heaters, so you can also use it in the winter time and enjoy the view here even if it's cold outside. So it is my favorite outdoor bar here on board of the AIDAnova. Usually it's not that crowded because you either have to walk through the yacht club restaurant or down those stairs here in the background, so it's a bit harder to find, and that's why usually it's not that crowded. We're now heading back up to deck 8. And now we're gonna walk around the promenade, take a look at all the amenities here on the promenade. For example, here we have the outdoor area of the Brauhaus, which we will take a look at later on. Most restaurants here on deck 8 have an outdoor seating area on the promenade. That's quite nice. So these promenades always have ups and downs. Here we have a small bar that you can't find on the deck plan, so I'm not sure if it is even used anymore or what its purpose is. Behind that we have the outdoor area of the Churrascaria Steakhouse here on the left side, and now we're heading on further to the front. So as I said, these wide promenades are having its ups and downs. I personally prefer a traditional promenade and then having the balconies above the promenade and not in front of it, like here on the Nova, so you have a better view from your balcony. But of course, then you're not having those nice outer areas that you have here on the Nova on the promenade. Here we have a small skywalk walking past the theatrium, and now we are at the sporty part of the promenade. Here we have a huge mini golf course with several opportunities to play mini golf, and in front of it is an area that I really like, and that is the outdoor gym. There is actually an outdoor gym with a lot of sports equipment available here. If you want to do some sports and you want to enjoy the sun or fresh air, that is your place to go. Open of course 24/7, just like the actual gym, which we'll take a look at in a second. But this is a quite new area for me. I've never seen something like this on a cruise ship. And here the outer gym also has a lot of sports equipment, so it is a very, very nice area. We're heading now to the end of the promenade. Here we can take a look into the spinning room of the gym. You can also take a look at the picture of it, and then we're heading back and continue our tour inside. We're now walking past the sports equipment on the promenade again. Here we have another room for courses. And now we're heading inside and we're taking a look at the actual gym. The actual gym is not that big, to be honest. It mainly comes with sports equipment for cardio, but there are also a few other machines, but I would say the size is comparable to the smaller AIDA ships. I was expecting the gym to be a bit bigger, but it has everything you need. We're now turning right, heading all the way to the front of the ship. Through this corridor we're gonna reach the entrance of the spa area. As always, I can't show the spa area because you need to have a reservation to go inside, and of course if it's open there are a lot of people, so it's not possible to film in here, but it is very spacious. It's taking up a lot of space here on deck 8, and it's also in the bow of deck 7, stretching over 2 decks. And here in the front we also have some more cabins. We're now getting close to cabin 8042. This is this cabin, and now I'm going to show you the way that you have to walk if you have this cabin to get to the next staircase. So you have to walk all the way to the front, then you have to walk to the starboard side, and then you have to walk all the way back to the entrance of the spa area through this corridor. And now you've reached the staircase, and now you can start going to your destinations on board. So even though those are nice cabins that are a bit closer to the waterline and you have a better view from your balcony, it means you have always a quite long walk to get to actually any point here on the ship. And we are continuing our ship tour. Here we have tours and activities. Here you can book the active excursions like bike tours or hikes. And here we also have a small counter where you can book your excursions. As always, I would recommend booking excursions already when booking the cruise. So I would only use these counters here if you want to book something spontaneously. Then we have some more shops. Here you can get perfumes and other cosmetics. You can take a look here through the barriers. Of course, the shops were also still closed. And then on the right side we have another office where you can book your excursions. If you need some more information, you can book your excursions also here. Right in front of it we have the third deck of the theatrium. Here we can see the Café Mare, but we will take a closer look at this bar later on, because now we're heading back out on the promenade. It's not a walk around promenade. That is a decision of AIDA. It doesn't have to be like this, because just a few weeks later I was traveling on the sister ship Costa Toscana, and there you have a walk around promenade, so it was a decision by AIDA to not have a walk around promenade, because this part where I am right now actually belongs to the spa area and it shouldn't have been accessible, but probably due to cleaning being done right now, the door was open, so I just walked inside. I didn't even realize I was walking into the spa area, so we can take a look at this area now, which has some nice relaxation areas and comes with several hot tubs. But we are now heading back out of this area, so as I said, usually it is only accessible if you have an appointment at the spa. We're heading back out. Here you can see this door. This is usually closed. Here we have the skywalk again, and now we're next to the ice cream bar, and here we have the outdoor area of the Casa Nova, the Italian restaurant on board. From here we continue on walking to the aft of the ship, walking past the Brauhaus, and now we're going back through the same door that we went on the promenade a few minutes ago. Now we're back inside, and now we can take a look at the Brauhaus, which means the brewery. And this is another very big restaurant, a specialty restaurant, which is included, and you do not need a reservation for it. Just the drinks are not included unless you have a drinks package, then some drinks are included. What is quite unique about this restaurant is that it actually is a brewery, so the beer that you can buy here is brewed on board. That is not a joke. There's an actual brewery on board of the AIDAnova, and you're gonna get locally brewed beer here in this restaurant. It's a quite big restaurant that is also used for events. That's why this part is looking different. It also has a stage, so here you can have an Oktoberfest, for example, and many other parties. Here you can see a bit of the equipment that is used to brew the beers, and here you can see behind the yellow windows is the actual brewery. So it's not a joke, the beer is actually produced here on board. We're continuing, heading back to the front of the ship, and now we're getting to the Ristorante Casa Nova, which is the Italian restaurant. This is the third specialty restaurant which is included, but you need to have a reservation for it. Also, this was completely fully booked when I booked the cruise, but I made my reservation as soon as I came on board through the AIDA app. I will tell you a bit more about the different restaurants in the upcoming videos and the vlogs where I was visiting those restaurants. We're continuing our ship tour. Here we have the ice bar where you can get some nice ice cream. Also a very beautiful part of the ship showing its elegant design. Here we can see it on the pictures as well. And now we can continue on back into the Café Mare, the third deck of the theatrium. Café Mare is a cafe sponsored by Starbucks. The design is more or less the same like on the decks below. It also has the same ups and downs, so you will hear the shows, you will hear the rehearsals, but it is a very nice looking bar and lounge, as you can see here, just with different colors. There are also a few of those beds that we know from the Sphinx class, the older ships. Here on the left side you can see them, but they are not coming with a TV anymore, so you cannot watch the show from those beds. Here on the right side we can take a look down into the theatrium again, and as you can see there are not that many seats available. For sure not enough for more than 6 2,000 passengers. For example, if we compare it to the sister ship Costa Toscana, where this is called the Colosseum, it is only one of 2 theaters. There is a traditional theater on board as well, which works a bit better than this theatrium here with its limited numbers of seats available. Here we can see the Café Mare, as I said, sponsored by Starbucks, with its own 2 bars, one on the port side, one on the starboard side, and the nice seating areas. But as I said, when you take a seat here, you will always hear the shows and the rehearsals. You can also take a look at the picture of the bar before we're heading further on to the front, but there's only one more public area we haven't seen yet, and we're back at the gym. Here we have the Hemingway Lounge, and this is supposed to be the library on board, but as you can see, the bookshelves, there are no books, and I don't know why. There was no specific reason visible why there are no books, but throughout the whole cruise there were no books in the library, so if you know why, let me know in the comments. We are now heading back to the rear part of the ship. Through the Café Mare we can take yet another look at the nice interior here of this bar, and then we are heading aft because there are one more bar and one more restaurant we haven't seen yet. We're now at 36 minutes and we have only made it until deck 8, but in a second we can skip a lot of decks because the next decks only have cabins. And these are also the most public areas, because on the Nova there are not that many public areas at the upper decks. Most of them are here on those decks that we have seen now. We're now heading into the Vinothek, which is a wine tasting bar. Here you can get a lot of different wines. If you're into non-alcoholic drinks, here you can get some non-alcoholic wines that are included in the drinks package, for example. And of course, there is a huge selection of regular wines available here. Most of them are not included in the drinks package, but still it is a nice and decent bar. Also looking much more beautiful than on the Sphinx class ships. It's also bigger and much more modern. Of course, all of these public areas have also been an inspiration for the Evolution program. AIDA got a huge refit and is now much more modern, and if everything is going to plan, we will have videos from AIDA straight after the AIDAnova videos. The cruise is already booked and is supposed to be happening very, very soon. Here we can see the Churrascaria, the steakhouse on board, also a specialty restaurant that is not included and you need to have a reservation. We can now go up to deck 16, so we can skip deck 9, deck 10, deck 11, 12, there's no deck 13, but we also skip deck 14 and deck 15, and we're now continuing on deck 16. We have cabins in the front part, so we can skip the front part, and now we can take a look at another main part of the ship, which is the beach club. This is the indoor pool on board. Unlike on many other cruise ships, it doesn't come with a retractable roof. This roof always stays closed. Even if the weather is nice, the roof is closed, but AIDAnova is also mainly sailing in Northern Europe, where it's always quite cold, so it's quite good to have a covered pool all the times, which is always nice and warm. We have a big screen, a big stage, a lot of different seating areas, sun loungers, so there are suitable seating options for every taste, as we can see here. And now we're heading to the AIDA bar. The AIDA bar used to be the biggest bar on board of the AIDA ships with its famous star shape. Here on the Nova it was downgraded to a small pool bar, which I think is quite surprising and strange, because actually it was always very important, but here on the Nova this bar is much smaller and much less important than on the older ships. But if you want to go to the AIDA bar, you can do it here at the beach club. Of course, we have a big pool available, and several hot tubs of course are available as well. And now we're heading aft of the ship. There are a few more things we can take a look at. We will take a look at the facilities of the beach club on deck 17 later on. Here we can see another area for sun lounges, and we can also take a look at the pool once again. So it is not a pool for swimming, it's more like a pool for relaxation and for kids and teens to play. As you have probably already figured out, this is a ship that is mainly intended for families. Of course, it's suitable for every age, but it is a ship that is perfect for families with kids. We are now heading to the next restaurants. Here on the right side we have the entrance to the Fuego restaurant and Best Pizza at Sea. The Fuego restaurant is a restaurant mainly intended for children and families. It's another buffet style restaurant, and Best Pizza at Sea is a specialty restaurant where you can get pizza. It's included in the cruise fare, you don't need to pay extra, but also here it might be happening that you have some waiting times. Here we can see the seating area of the Fuego restaurant, which is mainly for kids and teens and families, and here we can see the Best Pizza at Sea. I haven't tried the Fuego restaurant, but I tried Best Pizza at Sea already on the first day of my cruise, so you will see a bit more about this in the next video. Here on the other side we have the Wave Club, which is the teens club, and we have the game center where you can play some typical arcade games. Here we can also take a look at the picture of the game center. We are now continuing heading aft of the ship through an area that I do not really like. To me it looks a bit like a walkway from a shopping center to the parking lot. It's not that beautiful. Here on the left side you have the entrances to the kids clubs and teens clubs, divided by age. And from one of my least favorite parts, we are now coming to one of my favorite parts, and to the parts that I think are the most beautiful on board of the ship. Here on the right side we have the second entrance to the Fuego restaurant, and we are now at an area called 4 Elements. This is an area that is mainly intended for children, kids and families. But also for me it was a nice area because it is very nicely designed with a lot of love for detail. Here we have several seating areas, sun lounges. We have an area for climbing, which you can see here above us. We have some water slides, and there's also another bar. It's the bar called the 5th Element. It's a rather small bar, mainly for the parents of the kids that are enjoying their time here at the 4 Elements area. There's also a small stage, a small screen, so an area that can be used for many different purposes. What's quite interesting is that this area is only available on the AIDAnova. It's not available on the sister ship, the AIDA Cosma. And there's a specific reason for this, because on the Cosma, this whole area here is an open deck, as the Cosma is mainly sailing in the Mediterranean, but the Nova is mainly sailing in the North Sea, going to Norway and Western Europe, where it's much colder, so this is an indoor area, and that's the big difference between those two ships that I mentioned in the beginning of the video. Here we have the pool areas for small kids and teens. You can also see one of the water slides, which I will tell you a bit more about later on. Here we have the area that is mainly intended for the small children, and here we have a pool area for bigger children, which was closed, so we cannot take that detailed a look, but we will go there in a second. Take a look from above. Here we have a small playground for the small children, so it is a very nice area for children and kids of all ages. Also for teenagers there are a lot of things to do, for example climbing or the water slides, and it stretches over 3 decks, 16, 17 and 18. We're now going up to deck 17. So here we have some more seating, for example if there is a show or the screen is used, have some additional seating here, and we can take a look down to the pools that I've just mentioned a few seconds ago. And we can go even further up, but first let's take a look at the pictures. What I really like about this place is how open it feels through the big windows, and I really love those hanging plants, so it is a very nice design. I really like this space. We're heading further up to deck 18. Here we have the access to the climbing area. Of course it's not included, you need to pay extra, and it's a rather short course, but it's nice for kids and teens. And that's basically everything. Here is the entrance to the climbing area. So we can now go back down and we can take a look at the outdoor area, which belongs to the 4 elements area. From there you have a fantastic view over the stern wave of the ship. It's also partly a smoking area. And of course you have some more seating options available here. This is the outdoor area, and now we can enjoy the view down to the lanai bar that we have seen a couple of minutes ago down there. We're currently going into the port of Rotterdam. You will see more about this in the next video. Here we can see the pictures of this outdoor area and the lanai bar below. And now we're heading up to deck 17. We have now seen all public areas on deck 16. Now we're going up to deck 17, and now I can show you one big disadvantage of new ships. New ships are always using a quite slippery floor, and if a ship is sailing in the winter and it's -degrees and it's wet outside, this is happening. It was so slippery, and I was not expecting this. It was not slippery like always, where it's slightly slippery. It was slippery like ice, like black ice. It was almost impossible to walk on it. I warned somebody who was coming towards me, and they were just like acknowledging it and thinking, yeah, okay, he's maybe over exaggerating it. And those guys almost fell down as well. And I saw a lot of people almost falling down here on this day because it was extremely slippery, but not everywhere, just on a few parts. So that was quite weird. So make sure to be careful if it's cold outside and you're on the open decks. Here we have the exit of the AIDA racer. Those are 2 water slides where you can have a race. They're not exactly identical, but they have the same length, so they're more or less the same. And then there's a 3rd slide, which is a bit less fast. It is more for smaller children, or if you don't want that much action. And you can see the exit here on this side. We're now heading back after taking a look at the picture, of course. And on our way back, we are walking past the entrance to the slides. You have to walk up to deck 20. The highest point of the ship is the entrance to the slides. But we are heading back out to the open decks, heading up to deck 18. Here we have a sports deck where you can play different kinds of sports, and otherwise there are just a few sun decks available here. Now heading out of the sports court and onto the sun deck on deck 18. We're heading to the front, past the funnel. The funnel is not too spectacular, it's a rather low-key funnel, but of course coming with the typical AIDA logo. And otherwise here on this deck you have the possibility to play shuffleboard, and basically that's it. Here on the right side we have a special sun deck which is only intended for the guests of the suites, and we also have the AIDA lounge, a lounge that is also only intended for the guests that have booked a suite on board. So we have the ship-in-ship concept that we find on most new cruise ships, but here it is a very small concept, so it's only this lounge and the sun deck. All other areas of the ship are accessible for everybody. So you have the place for a guest to pay a bit more, who have an expensive cabin where they can relax, where it's calm, they have their own space, but it's not taking away too much space from regular passengers, so quite like what AIDA did here. This is the entrance. As you can see, you need your key card to open the door. Here we have the staircase and the elevators again. We're now heading to the other side. Shortly we're going up to deck 18 again, but just to make sure that you can see that you're not missing out anything, it looks exactly the same like on the other side. Here on deck 17 we have a hot tub available. You can see it on the picture as well. And now we're heading back to the beach club. We can take a look at the upper deck of the beach club. But there's not too much to see here on the upper deck. There's just a bit of additional seating, a few more sun lounges, a few more seats and tables are available here with a nice view over the pool deck. But there are no more public areas up here. So we are going just to the other side and back out. Then we are heading to the front of the ship on deck 18, and then we have actually seen all public areas of the AIDAnova. Just 5 more minutes and we have seen everything of one of the biggest cruise ships in the world and the biggest German cruise ship at the moment. Here we have another picture of the beach club, and now it's time to head back outside. Well, at least I try to get back outside, but this is another disadvantage. Those buttons seem to be so difficult. As you can see, I'm touching it, but nothing happens. I have to try several times, and finally now it registered my finger and it's opening the door. I don't know why those doors are so complicated, and I always had troubles opening them, but not only on the AIDAnova, it was the same on the Costa Toscana, which is using the same buttons. And there I was sailing in the Mediterranean, so it cannot be because of temperatures, so I don't know what was the problem here, but those door openers are quite tricky. So now I'm heading to the front. As you can see, I'm walking extremely slow, and that is because here it was extremely slippery again. And we are now getting to the last parts. Here we have another hot tub, and then you can see something looking quite weird behind it. Yes, this is actually a gondola of a ski lift. They put that here on the sun deck of AIDAnova for the winter season, so that the passengers still can do something on the sun deck. It's right next to a bar, and inside was a DJ that was playing après-ski music every evening, so there was a party inside the gondola and around it. Of course, the music was not only played in the gondola but also around it. So I really like what AIDA did there to make sure that those open decks are also attractive in the winter season. For summer season you also have some sunbeds here, also quite nice. And now we're coming to the pool bar, which is another outdoor bar. Here on the left side we have some smaller gondolas, of course also only here for the winter season. And they can be rented out, and there you can have a small meal inside in a very cozy and nice atmosphere. Here we can see the pool bar once again and those gondolas. And now we're heading further on to the front where we have the second big pool. This is the outdoor pool, always open, no retractable roof. It's always an outdoor pool with a lot of space for sun lounges next to it. And we are now heading to the front of the ship, and we will now reach the only area where you can have a view over the ship's bow. That is possible on deck 18 at the front of the ship, unless you have a cabin with a balcony overviewing the bow. But for most passengers, this will be the only possibility to enjoy the view over the ship's bow. But at least there is a possibility, because on many ships, especially on many big and new ships, there is no possibility at all to take a look over the ship's bow to the front. Here you can see what the view looks like. You can only see the tip of the bow, so there's not that much to see of the ship's bow, but there's a nice viewing area here at the front. We can now head up to deck number 19, and this is a deck that I'm never using on a ship, and probably it's only available on AIDA ships. This is a nudism deck, so here you can be naked. That is probably a thing that only a handful of Germans like to do. I really do not like it, and I'm only accessing this deck when I'm 100% sure that there's nobody else there. Of course, on this cruise it was always empty as it was very cold outside, but as I've heard, in summer it is frequently used. We're now heading back down to deck 18, and that was the last shot of my GoPro before the battery died, and the battery is actually pretty good, but this ship is so big that it even outlasted my GoPro's battery, so we will take a look at the last few meters with my regular camera, which is less smooth, but at least we can get a look. Here we can take a look at the curling slope that they put up for the winter season. And now we're gonna get to the small Christmas market, also specially put up for the winter season. Here you can get fresh waffles and mulled wine. And now we have seen all public areas on board of the AIDAnova. I hope you enjoyed this ship tour. In the next videos I will show you my cabin and the life on board, tell you a bit more about the restaurants. Here you can see when the next video will be uploaded and the name of the song. As always, I'd like to say thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, make sure to comment, like, subscribe or share the video link, and I hope to see you in my next video then.